It's me, Chucky. My mommy is the best. Super mom will be next. She helps mommy get their smiles back, their giggles back, and their sparkle back. You wait for the straw. Whoosh. Get ready for it's super slippery and super strong.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Healing the Soul podcast. It is your go-to resource for parents and want-to-be parents who strive for success without sacrificing connection and well-being. Each episode delivers actionable strategies and inspiring insights to help you build emotional intelligence and resilience for yourself and for your family. Strengthen relationships with yourself, your partner, and your children. Master parenting as an entrepreneur, even while raising young children. Discover life and parenting hacks that simplify your journey. Explore hypnosis and other healing modalities for a deeper transformation. This podcast isn't just about parenting and a fertility journey. It's about creating harmony, wealth, and alignment in every area of life. Let's get started. I am your host, Supermom Robin Stoltman. Today's episode is sponsored by Laura Miller, who has MSLCP R-DMT with Unbound Counseling Services. And she's the guest for today, and she is a licensed clinical therapist, which would explain all of the acronyms or the initials after, not acronyms, it'd be initials after her titling there. And she is a private practice owner, a group facilitator, and aerial arts enthusiast. She specializes in helping anxious minds transform fear and self-doubt into confident, purposeful action and healthier relationships. Through her unique blend of skills and passions, Laura connects deeply with her clients, empowering them to embrace their strengths and live boldly. Thank you, Laura, for being here with our audience today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So that's a lot of different titlings. That's why I'm like, what do all of them stand for? Like there's the MS, the LCPC, and then there's the R-DMT.
Yeah, it's definitely an alphabet soup, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So kind of putting that into a little bit of context, the MS is I'm a master's level professional. And then the LCPC is licensed clinical professional counselor. And then the RDMT is a bit interesting. I'm also a registered dance movement therapist. So what that means, dance therapy is a form of creative arts therapy, like art therapy, music therapy, drama therapy, that uses dance, movement, and the body as an inroad to the internal emotional experience. So the premise is that, inner reflects outer, outer reflects inner, and there's this reciprocal relationship that we can really explore, through movement. And so, being a dance therapist was very, attractive to me because dance played a large role in my own journey of health and healing. So incorporating that expressive, body-based lens was really important to me.
So are the movements, would those be intentional to release like anxiety or different things throughout the body?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So dance movement therapy, it largely focuses on expression. So I think, one of the things that people can get a little nervous about when they hear dance therapy is like, oh, I'm going to be doing ballet, or I'm not a dancer. Like, why, how can I do that? But the truth of the matter is we were all moving in the womb even before we were born. And movement is how we explore and learn about our world, especially before we're pre-verbal. And so by, tapping in to things like our movement preferences, our movement qualities, whether we move really fast or really slow, by exploring areas of maybe held tension, we can really learn a lot about what's going on inside by expressing things outwardly. So it's not a prescription. It's not like yoga where you have specific movements that you do and then you get a result. It's more like, hey, let's connect to where you are in your body today and see what we can learn from that.
Would that help kids with autism?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. There is a ton of research on using dance movement therapy in neurodivergent kids and communities. So, and I especially love it because everyone has a body and everyone for the most part, can move that body. Now, I don't want to, I'm obviously not talking blanket statements, but even for folks who have, for example, Parkinson's, even folks that have challenges, movement challenges or disabilities, or, even limb differences, we can all move our bodies. I've worked with elderly folks in wheelchairs that had very little movement, and we are still able to connect to the body and the experience of moving the body in whatever way is accessible. So it's really cool, very unique and beautiful work. But the long-winded answer to that is yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome because that's what I'm like thinking about. Like the one son I have has autism, so that's what I was
Hmm.
immediately thinking of. Was like, would that help him because he's sensory seeking. So I'm like, would that
Yes.
help? And then it's like,
Yes.
that's a great thing to know that there's a different type of therapy that would work.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Therapists that do that dance movement therapy, or is that something that's new or
Wow,
has it been around?
yes. It has been around. The
Oh,
very first dance movement therapists were working in um, basically like kind of back in the day when we used to have mental institutions, and we're doing work with inpatient, adult inpatient, you know, uh, we're adult inpatient clients essentially. It goes back a long time, and I think, one of the challenges that dance movement therapy has had is really, I think, making itself, marketing itself and making itself kind of known and accessible. And there are some dance movement therapists that think that we should drop the dance part altogether and just focus on like movement therapy because, like I said, some people don't consider themselves dancers. Well, I don't dance, so I wouldn't do dance therapy. And so that I appreciate including the dance because I think we all dance in our own ways. But you can go to a great way to find a dance movement therapist is to go to the American Dance Therapy Association website or adta.org.
I will have to do that
Yeah,
because
yeah, go there.
there's a
You can,
difference in that for the
yeah,
therapies. That's why I'm like, I'm excited to learn about this one. I'm, yeah, that's
yeah,
exciting though. Because I'm,
adta.org. You can learn lots about dance movement therapy. They have a really wonderful directory. You can find me on there as well. And yeah, you can search by your area, find a dance movement therapist.
how does it help then? Like I'm thinking like a child with autism, like I said, how would that help them? Would that like gain control over their body better than like martial arts, or is that going to be similar? Or like I guess do you know the differences between like the dance movement therapy over like martial arts as an
Yeah.
example?
Yeah, it's a
Is
great
there a
question.
difference?
I would say probably one of the biggest differences would be with martial arts, there are specific movements that you practice. And martial arts can be wonderful for kids, for kids and adults because it does teach sort of the ability to number one, tune into your body, to maybe practice different ways of moving in your body, and that kind of control, the ability to have that awareness of where your body is in space. We would call that proprioception, the awareness of where your body is in space and in relationship to other people. But there are specific movements that you practice, whereas in dance movement therapy, your movement is your body language. So there's no prescriptive type movement. Really, I think some of the benefits of dance movement therapy are the attunement between the therapist and the child or whoever the client is. Attunement is really the therapist entering, in this case, the child's world and trying on the child's movement and allowing the child to witness their movement reflected in the therapist and being able to develop a movement language where the child really feels seen and understood in that experience of being in their body. So being witnessed can be really powerful. And then also that feeling of attunement, which really helps with connection and relationship. So to give you an example of this, one of the things that I've done when I've worked with kiddos is we just do what's called the mirror exercise, where the child, we might practice going back and forth, where the child might do some movement, the therapist will mirror that movement with them, and then you switch roles, where then maybe the therapist does some movement and then the child will mirror that movement. And it's really sort of practicing the skill of being in relationship and attuning to others in a very fun and playful way, which I just absolutely love.
I was thinking like that's an NLP too, that matching and mirroring that they talk about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then also I got to thinking like when you're mirroring, they're also learning like what you said about being able to read other people better,
Yes.
which would
Yeah.
help with their social emotional skills and then the self-regulation at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. 'Cause yeah,
I
I
love
didn't even know that
that.
it existed. So that's
Yeah,
why I'm like,
oh
that's
my goodness. I love this. I love it. I love when people learn about dance movement therapy. It's just such a can be just such a powerful option for healing and for learning about yourself.
well, yeah, I wish I would have known about it. That's why I'm like, that's a
Yeah,
therapy that's different that, like I said, I didn't even hear of it at all.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is the first time.
And I am more than happy to help find some referrals. If you leave this meeting today and you're like, oh, I need to find a dance movement therapist, I can absolutely help you find one. And of course,
Oh.
adta.org. But yeah.
Well, and I appreciate it very much. Now I'm thinking, well, if insurance pays for it, but I suppose it's kind of one of those.
Yes, most insurances will cover dance movement therapy because we are licensed professionals. In order to
Awesome.
be a dance movement therapist, you have to be a licensed therapist.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So now I'm thinking we can kind of switch gears and ask about like for OCD and anxiety.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
So I'd like to know like what's the key difference between like the OCD and anxiety that most people misunderstand.
Yeah, that is a great question. So with OCD and anxiety, they can actually feel and look very similar. And it is OCD is one of, if not the most misdiagnosed conditions by therapists and by practitioners like PCPs, medical doctors. Um, so OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, there's a couple different components. There's the obsession, which is the intrusive thought. I call them sticky thoughts sometimes. It's the thought that like gets stuck in the head and no matter what you do, you cannot let go of it. And that happens in anxiety as well, but the difference then is the compulsion piece. So the compulsion is the behavior that a person with OCD does in order to help neutralize or get rid of or calm the anxious feeling. So as a very sort of visual example, I think one of the types of OCD that we think of most when we think of OCD is contamination OCD. So where a person has a fear of germs or a fear of getting sick, and therefore, perhaps they're sanitizing things compulsively, washing their hands compulsively, to the point where it's taking up hours of their day. That's another key point is that the compulsions, the obsessions and the compulsions, in order for a clinical diagnosis, need to take up at least an hour a day. However, that is small. Most of the clients I work with are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if not all waking hours of the day. So here's the difference. I'm going back to your question here. The difference between anxiety and OCD. With anxiety, we might have many things that we're worried about. So we're worried about finances, we're worried about our children, we're worried about our health, we're worried about making it to work on time, we're worried about the upcoming holidays, right? You're With anxiety, we're worried about many things. But the things that we're worried about are a bit more, they make sense. They make sense. So it's sort of like, I'm a parent, I'm worried about my child in school. Okay, that might make sense, especially if they're having some, learning challenges or behavioral challenges, right? A person with OCD, their worries do not quite make as much sense. Now, they make sense for OCD, but they're usually a bit out of what would be considered the range of a normal worry. So, for example, if I touch that door handle, I'm going to get sick and die. That's probably not the case. Now, is there a possibility you could get sick and die? Absolutely. Anything is possible in this world, but the probability of that happening is very small. And that's what OCD does. OCD conflates possibility with probability. OCD says because something is 0.1111 or 0.00001% possible, that it's 100% probable. And therefore, I need to do everything in my power in order to prevent the bad thing from happening. So again, hand washing, checking light switches, checking stove burners to make sure I don't burn the house down. And so the worries are a bit exaggerated. Okay. So while with anxiety, there's a lot of worries about a lot of different things. Usually OCD is very specific. So I'm worried about I'm going to burn my house down. I'm worried about I'm going to get sick and die. I'm worried about I might hurt someone. I have clients that are worried that they are going to physically harm someone, even though they don't have a violent bone in their body, but their OCD tells them you're going to hurt this person, you're going to harm someone. And that thought is so distressing that then they start the compulsive cycle in order to feel better. So that might look like seeking reassurance. Are you sure I would never hurt anyone? Lots of reassurance seeking in OCD. So I've been talking for a little bit. I'm sure you have questions. I'm going to stop and let you chime in there.
Well, no, I appreciate it because now I'm thinking, well, how is that any different than like PTSD as an example? Because almost like what you're describing,
Yeah.
like for OCD, can be very similar to PTSD. And then the anxiety part, well, that
Mhm.
one's, like I said, it's for me as a hypnotherapist, that's easy. It's like 5 sessions and it's gone. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
bother
Yeah.
person anymore. But like they both sound very similar to the PTSD. So what
Yeah.
would make that
Yeah.
difference? Because like PTSD, you still have the intrusive thoughts. You still
Yes.
have some of that rumination that
Mhm.
happens. Like even
Mhm.
myself with a brain injury, I'm like, I still have some of that
Yep.
stuff that I just can't stop thinking about.
Yes.
But then I'm
Yeah.
thinking, well, do I got OCD now too? Because I'm like thinking about that. I'm like, there's some thoughts, but they're not like that's part of the rumination part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like
Yeah.
the triggering of, okay, now I gotta go do this because that's a pattern to break. It's just the
Yeah.
habit.
Yeah.
So what would the difference be? I'm sorry if that's like a
Yeah.
loaded question.
No, it's a great question. And I think it's a great question because yes, many of these things have overlapping symptoms or overlapping presentations. And it's also possible for someone to have PTSD and OCD. In fact, about 70% of folks with OCD have some type of co-occurring disorder. So someone can have OCD and generalized anxiety. Someone, like I said, can have PTSD and OCD. So what is the difference? PTSD, the rumination associated with PTSD, is based on a real life event, either something that happened to the person or something that they witnessed happening or experienced happening. Whereas OCD, it is more about the what if that might happen? So it hasn't been a real event, but what if I burnt my house down? What if I push someone into rush hour traffic? I know that kind of sounds like an extreme example, but it is not uncommon with OCD for folks to have really, really disturbing, distressing thoughts like that. So PTSD based on a real life event that has happened. And then OCD is more of a what if scenario. What if this really horrible thing happens to me?
Oh,
Yeah.
now
And like I said,
it's
people can
amazing.
have
Yeah.
both. Yeah. One of the things that I didn't
Yeah.
mention earlier that I think is really important also to mention with OCD, it is also often called the doubting disease. Doubt is what really fuels the OCD. We call it the obsessional doubt. So, for example, if
Yeah.
someone is checking the light switch, they might turn the light switch off, leave the room, and then say, wait a second, did I really turn off the light switch? I better go back and check. So they'll do it again. They'll leave the room and go, but did I turn it off all the way? Like, did I really hear that click? Maybe I should go back and check. And now it's that doubt that fuels the cycle. A lot of folks think that the OCD thoughts fuel the cycle, but it's actually the compulsions. The more I check, the more OCD thoughts I'm going to have. The more I ask for reassurance, the more OCD thoughts I'm going to have. The more I avoid, the more that I, um, try to undo, the more OCD thoughts I'm going to have. So, as an OCD therapist, I'm not looking to stop the thoughts, I'm looking to stop those compulsions.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, to stop the habit from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because like I've noticed that like even with clients myself that if you can stop right be the not so much like the you got to catch the thought that's happening, but if you
Mm-hmm.
can catch between the thought and the behavior, and then you're able to change the behavior successfully
Yeah.
because you have to be
Yes.
able to catch like that gap between. And I never even thought that there actually was a gap, but there is a gap between the time you
Yep.
get the thought to the time you take the action, and they've proven that time and time again. And so it's like when I've seen that, it's like then you can change the behavior so much
Yes.
faster. Because
Yes.
now I'm thinking, do I got OCD? And I'm like, wait a minute, no, I don't. I'm just like change because I'm just saying like a lot of those are very, very similar.
Yeah, they are. They really are. And I love that you
Yeah.
mentioned, that gap there. Because what happens with OCD is folks, they perform the compulsions right as they start to get really anxious. And so the
Yeah.
body, the physiological response is, or the thought about it is, I can't handle this. I can't handle this distress. I need to get rid of it. I need to squash it. Need to do my compulsion so that it goes away. So effectively, you're teaching the body that you can't handle it over and over and over and over. And so by
Yeah.
not doing the behavior, what happens is you feel the stress, you sit with it, you don't do your compulsion, and then you realize that if I don't do anything, my stress will rise, but that it will eventually go back down without doing the compulsion. And that's what we're teaching. But we
Yeah.
don't do it all at once. We don't have someone
No.
confront their biggest fear on the first day. It starts very gradual. We start at the very bottom of the ladder, to start teaching the process and working the way up. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That gap is where there's just so much potential to be able to break the cycle, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, there is, and that's what I was thinking too, is like when somebody is a parent and they're the parent entrepreneur and they need to be able to recognize whether these are repetitive thoughts or behaviors or just those CD that's driving this anxiety. How can a parent recognize that difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, so Well, and I feel like I love that you brought up parenting too, because earlier I mentioned there are many different ways that OCD can show up. There's probably over 30 different types of OCD. One type of OCD is perinatal or postpartum OCD that comes along with childbirth, pregnancy and childbirth. And so many times if a parent has OCD prior, and I'm saying parent because this can also happen with men, with dads. Dads can also develop OCD. They don't have to be the birthing partner. Um, so what happens in perinatal or postpartum OCD, there's a chance that the person has had OCD and then the pregnancy and childbirth sort of flares it up due to the hormones, the crazy amount of hormones involved. I've also worked with some parents who literally get smacked with it. They've never had it before, and then all of a sudden they have OCD. And I'm so sorry. I feel like I got on a bit of a sidetrack there. The original question was how would a parent?
No. This is
No?
helpful because I didn't know
Okay.
about this part too. Because I was
Mhm.
wondering about for the parent entrepreneur, like how they can
Yes.
recognize the differences. Because when you're an entrepreneur, there's so many things that are involved, and then it's like, how do you know if it's that the anxiety or is it OCD that's like driving like the not so much like the
Yeah.
business, but like.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm
So
fascinated by this now too because I didn't know
yeah.
that it can happen, especially after
Yes.
postpartum. I'm like,
And
that's
in the
normal though to keep
postpartum
checking the
period,
baby though, isn't it?
yes, it is
That's
so
I'm like, I
normal.
checked the baby a ton.
Yes. And that is what is so sneaky about OCD. A couple of things. One, OCD attacks anything and everything that you value the most. Nobody has OCD thoughts about like happy things like winning the lottery. It's always like, especially in postpartum, what if something happens to my baby? Well, we all, as parents, we have those worries of something happening to the baby. But if we are checking the baby incessantly, to the point where we're not able to do anything else in the day, or if we are, um, just as an example, let's say, we're driving in the car and the baby's in the back seat, and I have to pull over every couple of minutes or miles in order to check the baby because I am absolutely terrified. Okay. Maybe it's not allowing other people to hold the baby. So when it starts to become the compulsions again, once those compulsions start to become very distressing and or they start taking up an hour or more a day, that's when we know that it's kind of crossed over into that OCD. And OCD can be a physical compulsion like checking, but it can also be a mental compulsion. And I think especially for entrepreneurs, this could be really interesting. You probably can identify, most people can identify with rumination. Are you kind of familiar like with that
Oh yeah,
experience?
the repetitive thoughts. Did I do this? Did I do that? Like, is this working? Is this not working?
Yeah.
What can I do differently? That's what I'm always thinking. Like, what can I
Yep.
do differently? What haven't I tried?
Yep. Or that mental ping pong. Well, I could
Yeah.
do this, but then I could do this, and then I could do this. And it's literally going on for hours and hours, maybe days or weeks,
All
and never gets
all
solved.
Yeah, I have that all the time. Like it never
Yeah.
stops. And then I go back and forth because I'm like, I want to be able to have my business. Like I want to like my real thing is like with the kids, I'm like trying to talk to other people about it. And they're like, so I'm like, the one child has the autism, okay? The other one, I'm like, he has ADHD and ODD. The one, two different children, two different issues. But I'm like,
Hmm.
I want to go speak. I want to speak on crowds of 30,000 parents. Like I see it so clear. I want to travel. I want to go do
Yeah.
the things.
Yeah.
But then I stop myself and I'm like, well, what about my son? What if he needs me? What if,
Hmm.
this happens? What if, and then I'm like, well, maybe I should just do this instead because that'd be easier. Or I should do this because that would be easier.
Yeah.
That ping pong,
Yeah.
like all day long,
All
every
day
single
long.
day. And then people are
Yeah.
like, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know what I do. I know what I do, but I don't know what I do. If that makes any sense at all whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
So
do know that part.
rumination, that exactly what you were describing, that rumination is often a part of OCD. Rumination can also be a part of anxiety. And that mental ping pong, getting stuck in the mental ping pong of it all.
all day long, every day.
I'm gonna throw out a tip that you can try, and that maybe the listeners can try too. But let's say that there's something that you have been just mental ping ponging back and forth for days, hours, weeks, months. And I'm gonna back up, and I'm gonna say one other thing here. I've never met a person with OCD who is unintelligent. People who have OCD or even anxiety are generally highly intelligent and highly intuitive and highly creative. And that's why their brains can go all sorts of different directions, and sometimes not in the, best service of our mood. Um,
Sounds like
so
me.
yeah, yeah. Sounds like a
I'm
lot of
just
us.
saying, like, that sounds
Yeah,
so much like me. That's why I'm
yeah.
like, I know I got a brain injury. So it's like, I know that part of it. But it's
Uh-huh.
like, how much is what? You
How
know?
much is what? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like that mental back and forth. And I'm just like, then you add the kids part to it. And I'm like, okay, we've got to.
Yes.
It started after the kids. That's
Yes.
really like when it started because I'm like, I have to be there. I'm like, I'm the only one that can take care of the one because I'm the only one
Mm-hmm.
that he feels safest around because I've
Yeah.
been there, you know? But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I'm like, those thoughts. And then it's like that
Yes.
creativity, like you said, it's like the creativity, the intuitive, like all the things. And it's like, okay, I'm already worn out.
I know. Well, and that is a physical experience of it. Like, it is
Yeah,
exhausting. It's
it
ex
is. And it,
Rumination is exhausting.
yeah. And it, at the end of the day, I'm like, this is why my business isn't moving forward. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
mental ping pong, like you said. It's that mental game, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then you get other influences of other people saying, oh, you should stop this. Oh, you should start this. Oh, do this, do that. And I'm just like,
Yes. Oh my
I know I'm
gosh.
talking to all the entrepreneurs. And that's why a lot
Yes.
of them don't want to move or they can't move. Is because
Yeah.
I know dang well they're dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with, that
Yeah.
I'm experiencing, that we're
Yeah.
talking about.
The analysis paralysis of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna throw out a tip that folks can try. And it really doesn't matter if your rumination is OCD or if it's generalized anxiety. Okay, so this can be helpful for both. So when you have the question of, um, well, if you don't mind, can I use you as a bit of a, guinea pig
I'm
in this moment?
Well, yeah, we can. I don't got a
Okay,
problem with it. That's why I'm
what
like I'm
what's the
real.
big what if? What's the big what if today?
Yeah.
Like, just to the extent that you're open, to sharing with everyone listening.
Yeah.
What is the big what if question, like, that causes the mental ping pong, or one of them?
Well, I guess for me, the biggest thing, like with my son with the autism, is what if he needs me because he's like the third hip sometimes,
Mm,
and it's like for me, it's like he's at school. I get that, but I even had a hard time letting him go to school because it's like I know if he needs something, his sensory issues, he isn't there quite yet in knowing how to regulate himself when something
yeah,
comes up. But I've
yeah.
been able to catch it. I've been able, like I spent a whole
Mm-hmm.
like he just started going to school. He's 9 years old. He can't
Mm-hmm.
he's working on learning how to read because I wasn't working on that. My top priority was getting him to handle his emotions appropriately
Yeah,
without wanting to hit
yeah.
everybody. And I've
Mm-hmm.
got that under control. So it's like now I'm like, and then when I've traveled, he's always got a call. And I'm like, okay, I want to be free, but at the same time, it's that what if he needs me?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
does that make sense? Like
yeah.
what I'm
It
saying, what I'm
absolutely does.
asking?
It absolutely does.
Because that's
And
what's stopping me. Because I'm like, if I do what I want to do, well, then I'm going to have to let go of him. And if I do
oh,
what I want to do, like that's what I said. If I do what I want to do, that would
mm-hmm.
happen. But then if I don't do what I want to do, then I'm like, I'm leaving money on the table. I'm leaving deals on the table. A lot of opportunities that I'm missing. Like, there's a lot of things involved that I'm missing, that I'm putting out because I'm more focused on him, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense at all. And I'm like, I got 8 kids total, but it's like just that one that I'm very
Mm-hmm.
protective of because, like, he has no concept that he could get hurt. And same with the
Yeah.
one with the ODD
Yeah.
and the ADHD, like, no
Yeah.
concept that they could get hurt. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm always having to watch.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, what if something happens and I'm not there? Or what
Yeah,
if something happens because I'm not there?
yeah. Because things
Yeah.
have happened when I
Yeah.
haven't been around that I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. That's the part that anxiety will really grab onto, because there's
yeah,
always a nugget of reality in the worry.
yeah, there
Yeah.
is.
And so let me see if we can dive just a little bit deeper. Let's say that
Yeah.
he needs you and you're not there, or something happened that could have been prevented if you were there. What would that mean? Either about
Um,
you or about life, or like, what is the core fear? Something happens, you're not there,
that'd be a bad mom.
that you'd be a bad mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the core fear. So
Yeah.
all that rumination is swirling around. I would be a bad mom, or I might be a bad mom. When
Oh, yeah.
number one, I see we've been, chatting now for what? I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. I
Yeah.
already know you're not a bad mom. I already know this. I already know this. So all that anxiety is swirling around that what if I'm a bad mom? Now, do you believe that in your core, that you're a bad
No, I
mom?
don't. Because I
No.
know that
Okay.
I know that I'm not a bad mom.
You
Like,
know
I'm
you're not
doing
a
all
bad
the
mom.
things.
Yes.
I'm doing a
But
lot
there's
more
that
than most
doubt.
are.
You are. And again, I've only been chatting with you for a short amount of time, and I
Yeah.
already sense this. So there's a little bit of that anxiety that says, yeah, but what if you're not doing enough? Or yeah, what if you are a bad mom? Or what if you could be doing better? That hits at that core, ouch, poking at you because
Yeah.
you love and care for your kids so much.
Well, yeah, I'd give
So
him the moon if I could.
yeah,
I'm just
here's
saying.
here's the thing here's the thing, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to hate
Yeah.
this. You're going to hate it, but it's going to be so effective. All right. When you are in that mental ping pong,
Yeah.
in that particular thought, and it is drilling down to, oh, this is my I might be a bad mom, worst
Yeah.
case scenario thought. You say to yourself, maybe I'm a bad mom, maybe I'm not. Time will tell. Or I guess we're just going
Mm,
to have to see what happens. We're not trying to solve it. We're not trying to debate it. We're not even engaging with it. We're saying, yep, there's a possibility I might be a bad mom, and I guess I'm just going to have to see where my life goes. Okay.
yeah.
And then the next step, if you want to add a little bit into that, you could even say, it could sound a little bit differently, like, oh, I'm noticing I'm having that thought that, like, I might be a bad mom. I'm noticing that story. That's my bad mom story, kicking in.
Yeah.
I can commit to doing whatever it is I was planning on doing today. So maybe it is following through with doing the podcast
Yeah.
today. Maybe it is, um, I'm going to give my kid a big hug when they get home to show them how much I love and care. I'm going to take that values driven action, the thing that I want to do, not the thing that anxiety is trying to get me to figure out in this moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So you learn that, number one, am I a bad mom? That is not solvable. I mean, unless you're like Casey Anthony or something, like
Yeah.
something
No.
horrible like that. That is not,
No.
that was maybe a bad joke. I recognize that. But you know, in the absence of something like that, am I a
Yeah.
bad mom? That's not solvable. It's so
No.
subjective. And sometimes folks will have OCD around being in the right relationship. Am I in the
Mm,
right relationship? Is this the right person for me? Career wise, is this the right
Um,
job for me? Am I in the right job? Should I even work, or should I stay home? Right?
yeah.
Most
Those come up
most
too.
those come up a lot. For the vast majority of decisions, there are no right and wrongs. They're just different.
Yeah.
So by leaning into the uncertainty and saying, I actually don't know what's going to happen, but I can do what I was planning on doing today, we can sort of rewire that physiology to be able to handle that uncertainty. We learn that we can go through our day and we don't have to get hijacked for hours by the thoughts.
That helps out tremendously. I'm just saying, because like what you said, it's kind of like when I've asked clients before, it's like, where's the proof? I'm like,
Yes.
because the brain can't argue with something that's
Yeah.
not in front of it. Like, that's
Right.
one of the things I found out on my own, because it's like when I ask myself the question, like, where's the proof?
Mm-hmm.
And then my brain's like trying to give me proof, and it's like, it can't, because it's not in front of me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And here you bring up a really excellent point because with anxiety, you can do things like that and say, where's the proof? And then a person can logically go, oh, yeah, there's really no proof of that. And then they're sort of able to move on from it.
Yeah.
But with OCD, you could give proof to OCD, but OCD is always going to go, yeah, but how could you really be sure? And it's going
Oh,
to always insert that doubt. And so sometimes strategies that work really great for anxiety don't work so well for OCD because they actually are trying to say that something is 100% factual when OCD is saying, yeah, no, you have to doubt everything. So for
hmm.
someone who is, let's say someone's going to therapy. This is like,
Yeah.
for your parent entrepreneurs. Let's say, you've been going to therapy for years. You're doing the work. You're doing the
Yeah.
cognitive behavioral therapy. You're like trying to do what the therapist says. You're honestly like putting in a good effort, and it's not working. Those are the folks that usually end up in my practice. They go, I've been in therapy for years. I've been doing this and I haven't gotten better. And then I usually go, we should look into OCD
Mm,
because it's a very specific type of therapy that can get you out of OCD.
that is good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. So it's probably just the therapist that was that not necessarily don't know what they're doing, but it's the type of therapy that they're trained to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I truly believe that, all
Yeah.
therapists are well-meaning. They all want to help. And, it's a real disservice, I feel like, to students that OCD isn't more kind of just taught about, in schooling, because so many therapists very well intentionally miss it.
Yeah.
Because again, it doesn't always look like checking light switches or washing your hands. It can look like mental compulsions, which are largely invisible.
I was wondering, can that apply, like, I know, like, autism, for example, like, that can be, it can go with so many different diagnoses too at the same
Hmm.
time. But would, like, autism, could that have, like, one of those things that where it goes, like, with OCD? Like, you know, like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like a great example, I guess, is like with my son. He talks about tractors all day long. Like, I swear he was born a tractor,
Oh,
like
that
a
is
farmer.
so
He,
sweet. Yes.
yeah, he's told me that he's a farmer, and I'm like, I believe you, you're a farmer, and I'm
Yeah.
helping guide him in that because that's what he's told me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, he's just so like when he's got his mind set on something, it is like dang near impossible to get him to
Yep.
refocus on something else, and it can be months, but
Yeah.
he's still
Yeah.
like, is that similar then, or is that going to be like different for like the autistic versus the OCD?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like
Great
OCD and
question.
anxiety are completely different, which are a good thing. But like you said, it can go together. But now I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, this is a great question. And again, folks with autism, ADHD can also have OCD. But if we're assuming that they're two separate things, um, folks with autism or neurodivergence with their kind of hyper fixation, special interests, like wonderful brains that work in that way, um, their thoughts or their obsessions, if you will, are egocentric, meaning your son loves tractors. He wants more of them in his life. He loves learning about them. He loves spending time with them or building them or playing with them, right? So egocentric, they want it. There's a desire. Whereas with OCD, those thoughts are ego dystonic. They don't want them. So someone with OCD doesn't want to be thinking about harm coming to their baby, and they don't want to be doing those compulsions. They're washing their hands. They don't want to be doing it. They feel like they have to. So there's an element of like, I don't want this at all. Believe it or not, there's even a type of OCD called harm OCD, where people will sometimes be so worried that they themselves are going to commit suicide, even though they're not suicidal. That can also get really missed. So an actively suicidal person is coming up with a plan. They have an intent, they're coming up with a plan. A person who has OCD about suicide is going, what if I commit suicide? I'm going to avoid my garage because there's tools in there. I'm going to avoid going anywhere where there might be knives. I'm going to avoid taking any type of medication because I'm afraid I'm going to overdose. They don't want to die. They're not actively suicidal, but they're deathly afraid that they might become suicidal. So I know that was a little long-winded, but with autism and neurodivergence, like it's like love. I love my special interest, or I love my obsession. And with OCD, it's fear-based.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm like, I didn't even know that there was that many different types of OCD. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
dated a guy in high school that has OCD, and he was constantly washing his hands to the point where his hands turned
Oh,
color. And then of course I was
yeah.
dating him, so kids were kids. It's high school and they're not nice,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for him because it's like he never got past what was
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
So it's like I knew about that part of the OCD, but not like all these other areas that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating
Yeah.
how the brain can just get wrapped on one thing for like the what if. And then
Mm-hmm.
like me, I'm like I've noticed like the what if parents, they bother me the most because it's like, well, what if you get hurt? And me, I'm like, what if you don't get hurt? What if the child
Right.
does
Yeah.
something and then
Yeah.
they learn and not sorry, but my kids, I learned the hard way. My kids learn the hard way too. I'm
Yep.
just
Yep.
it's like that's how we learn better. Like
Yep.
my one son that I was talking about, like with the autism, okay? 2 years old. Didn't matter what I did to the kitchen table. Like we strapped all the chairs the best we could, putting bungee cords around the table. He still got up on the table just to fall down. Concrete floors, but he liked it. Like he just kept doing it
Yeah.
repeatedly, and
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't matter what I did. He kept doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I'm not a bad mom, but it's just like because I did what I could to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Mm-hmm.
like you get to that certain point, and it's like, you know what? Just let the kid find out on himself. He's gonna land hard enough where eventually
Yep.
he's gonna stop, and he did,
Mm-hmm.
and then he
Mm-hmm.
stopped.
Yep.
But it's like how can a parent know like when they need to just stop at that line, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those things you just got to let them do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And I think, that's what can make OCD and anxiety so difficult during parenting. And I kind of going back to something you said earlier, like with your high school boyfriend, it takes on average 14 to 17 years for someone to get the proper diagnosis and treatment for OCD. So people are living with this for decades, either under the radar or not being diagnosed or being misdiagnosed. And so, it is kind of, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where there's a lot of decision making, and decision making can be challenging, whether you're a parent, an entrepreneur, when you're both of those things at the same time. And when that decision making feels very paralyzing, that might be a cue that, like, okay, maybe I might need a little specialized support around this.
Well, yeah, 'cause now I'm thinking like how does the perfectionism play?
Oh,
Because, like some
yeah.
of us
Yeah.
entrepreneurs have that perfectionism.
Yes.
So then I'm like, how does that play? I'm sorry, I'm like
Oh,
throwing so many
yeah.
I'm
Oh
probably
my
throwing a lot of
gosh.
hard questions at you.
Yeah,
But
no,
I'm
this
also
is
like, this
great.
is just fascinating.
Yeah, the
Just saying.
perfectionism could be its own show. I feel like it is so fascinating. Perfectionism can be a type of OCD. We often call it just right OCD, where something has to be done or it has to feel just right in order for someone to move on. Perfectionism can also be, there's another diagnosis, obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So, with obsessive compulsive personality disorder, similar to the neurodivergence, the the compulsions are egocentric. So people want to clean because they want their house to look a certain way. Or people want to spend 3 hours decorating the tree because they want it to look a certain way, not because they feel like they have to. Now, here's a fun fact about OCPD. Folks with OCPD usually do not end up in therapy because they feel like there's a problem. People with OCPD come to therapy because everyone around them says that they have a problem and they're driving their spouse or their family or their coworkers crazy. So again, it's kind of that ego syntonic versus dystonic. It's not so much fear-based. It is like has to be just right kind of based. And it's a little different treatment, but both of them deal with, various ways of sitting with discomfort. And also, a little bit of cognitive reframing as well. But I think, a test of this is like, you know, if you're let me ask you this. I feel like this can sometimes be a bit of a tell. If you send a text message and it has a typo in it, do you have to correct it?
Every time.
Or can you
Yeah.
move on? You have to correct it.
Yeah, I have to correct it if I catch it, but otherwise if I don't, I'm just like, oh well.
Okay. What would happen if you caught it, but you didn't correct it? Like you noticed you put
I'd
your
want to go and fix it.
okay,
Like
you'd want to go and fix
that's
it.
I will not want to. I do go back and fix it. I'll
You
text the
do go
person.
back and
I
fix it.
meant this.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd have a little bit of a hard time.
Oh
Like
yeah, I have a hard
that
time
would
letting
feel like
things go.
distressing.
Yeah, I have a really
Yeah.
hard time letting things go. My
Yeah.
husband, he's just like, he can let things go. And I'm like, I can't. I've got to work on this until I have it right.
Uh-huh.
I'm just
Uh-huh.
saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I was
mean,
kind of laughing because I'm like, yeah, we're thinking about the business, thinking about I got to have this just right because otherwise, if I don't, well, then if it's not so much that if it's wrong, but it's like, I got to make sure I had this right. And then, like, when I failed, I'm like, some people have like the fear of failure. I'm like, I figured out more ways how to fail than anyone dead or alive, I'm pretty sure.
mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm still doing the thing, but I'm like, because something has to work. Like, that's like 7 years, like doing the business
Yeah.
as a whole. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I just cannot let it go. But my mom is like, let it go. My husband's like, let it go. I've got other people, let it go. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't. There's something driving me greater and bigger than me that's like,
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
to do this. I can't explain it. I just know that I'm meant for more. Like, I have to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I
Yes.
don't think that's OCD, but now I'm thinking,
No, that doesn't sound like OCD to me. That sounds like intuition. That sounds like, yeah, that doesn't sound like OCD. Now, and again, I'm gonna have say a
yeah,
disclaimer here that, you're not my client at the moment. I don't have enough
well,
information to diagnose.
no.
But what I can say is what you just described just sounds like intuition. It sounds like a dream, a goal.
Yeah, it very much is. It's like, it's, it's so hard. What upsets me the most in my dream is, no, it's not even a dream, it's business because I'm doing it. What upsets me the most is that I'm not there yet. Like,
Yet.
I see
Yeah.
the end result, like where
Mm-hmm.
I'm on stages, I'm speaking 30,000 parents, like I'm doing the thing, I'm encouraging people. I've got all the things built out, like I'm doing all these things affecting the generation Gen Z and Alpha. I'm doing the things, I'm helping them become greater than what they are
Yeah.
now and helping
Yeah.
them move forward and helping them become parents. Like I see it so clear. And then I'm like, I've got nothing. right now. Like I feel like it, but it's like that's not
Mm-hmm.
true. So then my brain's
Mm-hmm.
like in that, like I keep saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's not true," and I'm like, "Well, we're in the same spot we were last year," and my brain's like trying to play that game with me right now, and I'm like, "No, I've gotten some new skills from last year to this year.
Mm-hmm.
So what if
Mm-hmm.
my finances are still the same? Who cares? I'm still learning." But it's that thing that really upsets me is like, because it's like I'm not there yet,
Yet.
but it's
Yeah.
coming and I can feel it,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
um pulled like by a motor almost. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I don't let my dream happen, then it's like it's equivalent to death almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I
Yeah.
have to choose between giving up my dream or death, I'm like, just give me death. Like that would be so much
Yeah.
simpler
Yeah.
and less painful than giving up my
Mm-hmm.
dream. Does that make any sense at all?
I'm just gonna sit over here and say hard relate. Like in I
Yeah.
can relate very much so in building, my private practice. There's no shortage of therapists out there, really. So,
No.
it's kind of like there's all of I consider myself a therapist. I'm still working on the I'm an entrepreneur part. That is a huge learning curve for me.
Oh
And
yeah.
I have moments, I have hours, I have sometimes days and weeks where I'm like, what am I doing? I should just go back to corporate America. I should just, go for that predictable life. It might not be happy, but it'll be predictable. But then at the end of the day, it's like, but that just doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to do. And I actually
Yeah.
love what you're saying, where you're adding that yet. I'm not there yet. That yet is so powerful. That yet is so powerful. And you're actually inspiring me in this moment. I'm like, wow, I wasn't expecting today to just like basically hear myself, talking about how I feel about, my dream and my business
Yeah.
sometimes. So that yet is so powerful. And kind of being able to just zip things back and go, I can commit to doing this today. If I want to feel successful, I can feel successful. I just need to focus on the success of today.
And I'm glad that I'm inspiring you too at the same time as we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
is like I said, it's not very often that it's like I get the entrepreneur that understands like where I'm at. And it's just like at the same time, it's like you said, like you're struggling with the entrepreneur brain. And I'll give you a tip. What I've figured out so far is that you never stop learning. It's like John C.
yeah,
Maxwell said, like you always are learning all the time. And it's not necessarily like what he said, but I've told people, I'm like, the day I stop learning something new is the day I want to die.
yeah,
Because I'm like,
yeah.
what's the point to life if you're not learning something
Hmm.
new? But I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm doing, and I'm just like, when does it stop? But I'm like, at the same time, it became a new obsession in a way of like, I want to keep growing myself because the more
Yeah,
I've grown
yeah.
myself, the more I'm like, you know what? I like me. Like,
Hmm.
one of the things that, one of my sons, the pediatrician, wasn't the nicest to me recently. And I was like,
Oh.
okay, I'm like, you know what? He's a great example of why I need to be nice to me. Because if I'm not nice to me, I
Mm.
got plenty of people to pick from that are more than happy to tear me down at any
Oh,
moment. And
wow.
it's like
Yeah.
one of those things that it's like I even asked my husband, I'm like, did I take that wrong? And he goes, well, no, I don't think you did. And I'm like, well, I don't know. But I'm just like, I've let it go. But it's like that was a great example to me in that moment. And then
Yes.
like I said,
Yes.
as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly learning, but it's like for the life of me, when I think about going back to getting a job, I'm like, yeah, it's easier. Like you said, it is
Hmm.
100% easier. But my brain is just like, there is a, I swear that there has to be a difference between the entrepreneur brain and the employee brain. Like how we're
Hmm.
wired, like we just
Yeah.
don't let go of something. It's like we know, like when
Hmm.
we're supposed to do it. It's
Hmm.
like I said, it's like you can't, like I can't give up. It's
Yeah.
like having the
Yeah.
baby without having to have the physical part of the baby.
Yes. Yes. And I also, and I think like, kind of a great maybe even way, to kind of pull everything together is what you mentioned around that being nice to you, that self-compassion piece. I think especially as entrepreneurs and even as parents, We tend to be really critical on ourselves. Maybe that language was a bit inherited from our own parents, like kind of being hard on ourselves, like pull yourself up, like, you should be able to do this, whatever it is, like being really self-critical. When we're self-critical, we actually narrow our focus, or not narrow, well, we do. We kind of narrow our focus on the negative. We also limit our creativity. We're not as likely to see possibilities. So acting from a place of self-compassion towards ourselves is fuel. It's not soft. It's not, it doesn't mean that things aren't important or that we're like giving up. Self-compassion literally creates and allows for the space for more possibilities and more creativity. And I always say,
Mm.
for people that are super hard on themselves and that are succeeding, I say, oh my gosh, if you're succeeding so much beating yourself up every day, I wonder what you would succeed if you also introduced a little self-compassion.
I like that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask myself that because it's like I'm learning how to be the compassionate towards myself. Because like the one thing I don't want to have happen is for my daughter. I've only got one daughter out of 8 children. One daughter. The last thing I
Mhm.
want is for her to learn what I saw my mom do, which was a lot of different things. But I want my
Yeah.
daughter to not be um, having that no confidence or like,
Yeah.
why do you want
Yeah.
me? I'm like, I just want it. My kids want me because they want me. Like,
Yeah.
it's different. But like that's my biggest thing is that I've think like the biggest, most damaging thing. Like I was sexually abused. I had a long, bad, horrible. A lot of things happened when I was young.
Mm. Mhm.
It's amazing that I'm even alive. And at the same time, I'm like, the one thing that I wish that she would have had and she still doesn't have is confidence. Because if
Hmm.
I had seen her be confident in herself, I really think that that would have changed a lot of things for me personally.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think like that's what parents need. Like
Mhm.
parents as a whole, I'm like, if we're confident, our children will be confident. Like John Maxwell has said, you cannot give what you do not have.
Mhm.
Like,
100%. And I feel like, if that piece is getting in the way of, going for your goals, of parenting, there is absolutely, no shame in getting support around that. I'm very, open about that as well. I have a therapist. I'm a therapist who has a therapist.
same here.
Yes. So like, when the anxiety, when the worry starts to take up, hours and hours of the day, it's starting to interfere with relationships, it's interfering with goals. Or maybe you notice, like, I've been stuck in the same pattern.
Mm.
Reaching out to get some support around that can just truly be life changing. And it's not to say that it's easy, not to say that it's quick, but it truly can, change lives.
Yeah, then most definitely. So I'm just wondering, what is like one small courageous action a parent entrepreneur can take today to break free from that cycle of the obsessive thoughts or anxious feelings?
Oh, that is such a great question. What could a parent entrepreneur do today to break free of that cycle? I think, you know, I th- and I feel like, sometimes it depends where the person is at. But number one is just even recognizing I'm in a cycle. I'm in a cycle, just recognizing that.
Mhm.
Um, I have a saying, and I didn't make this up, but I honestly can't credit who did because I don't ever know. I don't know who did. But it
Yeah.
was the ABCs. Awareness brings choice. The
Ooh,
adult ABCs. Awareness brings choice. Once we have awareness, we can break out of autopilot and we can then explore choices. So maybe that part of breaking out of the cycle, again, depending on where you're at, is number one, recognizing if I'm in the cycle. Number two might be in small ways exploring opposite action. So if anxiety is telling me to do this, maybe I could do the opposite of that, or asking yourself this. Okay, this is what I want to say right here. What would a person without anxiety do in this moment? And then try to do that. And then recognize that it's uncomfortable and it's not fun. Start in very small ways. So an example for you might be you send a text message. Let's say it's not even a professional text message. This is a text message. You send a text message with an error in it. And the anxious part of you wants to get like, oh, just kidding. I really meant to say this, or like correct it. Challenge yourself. I'm going to step back. I'm not going to correct it. I'm going to recognize that I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. I would like to correct that, but I can take the opposite action and I can go do something else with my day. And in that small way, you are practicing sitting with the anxiety, moving through it without having to do something. And as high achieving parent entrepreneurs, our strengths are I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do it. When sometimes we just need to step back and say, I don't have to respond to every anxious feeling or thought that I have.
Yeah, because I'm just having anxiety thinking about it.
Like, oh
About
no.
not being able to fix it. I'm just like, how do you like? I'm like, okay, I could sit on my hands. I'm just like,
Yeah, what would I do? I could just sit on my hands instead. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a great.
And
No,
if it
because
feels hard, you can always reach out for support. Even if you're a therapist, even if you're a medical professional, like we, again, beautifully tying everything in. I feel like, we're all learning all the time.
we definitely are, and new skills and new things all the time. That's why I said like the biggest secret is when you're an entrepreneur is you're always going to be learning something new all the time. And like
Yes.
I've heard it before is you want to have all of the harder lessons like money lessons or not hiring the right person, like you want to have all those harder lessons as quickly as possible so that you get them done and over with because it avoids the bigger problems down the road like somebody I'm trying to think like I'm thinking espionage, but that's something different. When they embezzle or, like
Oh
you
yeah.
lose
Yeah.
millions versus you lose it quick, you lose it when you're starting. It's so much easier because then when it comes up again, because it will, it's just how it is. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I recognize this. I'm not going to do the exact same thing that I did before because I recognized it
Yeah.
when I failed when I was
Yeah.
younger. And
Yep.
that's the beautiful part about the failure piece. I'm just saying,
Absolutely.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
failure. I'm
100%
like,
agreement.
sometimes I don't tell my kids this, but sometimes I mess up just so that they can see that I make
Yes.
mistakes. I'm
Yes.
just
I
saying.
love it. I love it.
So I just want to know, like, what's the best way for everybody to get in contact with you? Because I'm like, this episode was just like, it was like I said, it really was a lot of fun. It was very fascinating for me because it's like I've never realized that there was so much more depth to like the OCD than what I thought. Like,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. So the best way to get a hold of me is visiting my website. It's www.unboundcounselingservices.com. I have a nice blog section on there. So if you're interested in learning more about neurodivergence and OCD, or different types of OCD, or what if I have OCD? What are compulsions? I've got some great articles about anxiety and just kind of life stuff in general. So there's lots of blog information there. And then I also have a contact page, and I'm more than happy to help find folks resources to help connect them with dance movement therapists or OCD therapists. So just reaching out via my contact page is the best way to go. I am on Instagram, although I admit I am not great about posting on there super frequently, but I do have a few videos on Instagram as well. And I have a few more podcasts linked on my website. So relationship OCD is one, if anybody's interested in that. What if I'm in the right relationship? Check that one out because that's a good one.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. This was super fun. And yeah, I just appreciate your vulnerability in the moment. And yeah, I think this episode could reach a lot of people, and that's exciting.
As always, I just want to thank you for your time and energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast wherever you get your downloads, you're listening to your podcasts, and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast, which also can be found on YouTube.